So now we are getting our audience here. Thank you everyone for joining in. As well, I wanted to thank everyone for joining in yesterday and for all of the feedback that we received. We're really happy to hear what everyone thought of our first panel discussion last night. So today our discussion is going to be focused on culture and language within our community. So first, I'm going to go over our speakers. So today we have Killa Antencio, Maddie Metallic, as well as Oakely Wysote-Grey, and they all demonstrate a lot of capabilities within culture and language and have been a part of a lot of projects that were very inspiring, and we wanted to showcase our youth, especially within culture and language, because it's something in our communities that is not so common these days, but we do see a resurgence in that as well. And so first I'm going to go over our agenda for today. So we have a welcoming and our prayer, and then we're going to go into our introductions of our Niganpugultieg team. And then we're going to go over why we chose this topic, as well as why we chose the name Niganpugultieg. And then we're going to go into our discussion. And after, we're going to have a question and answer period with our Facebook Live comments. So welcome everyone to our culture and language discussion. I'm going to begin this with the Labillois prayer. I wanted to start with this prayer as a student from AGS. We grew up in the school, like learning this prayer, and I also wanted to acknowledge Mabel Metallic, who provided me with the words to this prayer, and I don't know it by heart, so I'm going to read it, and so I'll start right now. Labillois Izul Okshit Imsikohe Dandeli Gimwiak Desi Bunkeg. Labillois Naguset Labillois Glahowedge Dandeli Gimwiak Wasahan. Labillois Okshit Midis Labillois Oksit Hamu Dandeli Gimwiak Mijitjewe. Labillois Gisel Dandeli Gimwiak Ingi Guk Bidungi Guk Dandelik Saluksiak Dandeli Ankoyoksiak. Labillois Okshit Imsikohe Dandeli Gimwiak Desi Bunkeg. Nadliach. And so next we're going to go into our introductions. So I will begin. Deluisi Nadia Wysote, Dleawi Listuguj First Nation, Oakely Wigan, Ikjibuktuk. I'm from Listuguj First Nation, and I'm currently living in Halifax, Nova Scotia. I'm currently working, or haven't started yet, but I am going to be a financial administration assistant. I just recently graduated from the University of New Brunswick back in May with a degree in a bachelor's of business administration with a focus in accounting. So I'm going to pass it on over to Macy and let her introduce herself.
Ian Deluisi, Macy Metallic, Oakely Listuguj First Nation. So hi, my name is Macy Metallic, and I'm from Listuguj Mi'kmaq First Nation. I recently graduated at Algonquin College with a certificate in office administration, and right now I'm pursuing a studies at the University of New Brunswick. So I'm taking a Bachelor of Philosophy in Interdisciplinary Leadership, so a minor in Leadership Studies and a minor in Native Studies. Yeah, I'll pass it on to Rose.
Labillois, introduction si Webeg Messibia, Hadnok Eliganai, Akindodam Nagunig, Delisi Rose Labillois, Wiggy Oakby Gunjek, Agaspegawaj, Inkage na Glenda Wysote, Aknuch Gordon Labillois, Elvogok Olnaweg Ginama Sudi, the BACS program. I was like, where am I going to school? But I want to thank everybody for joining on today. This is certainly, a very important, topic and something that's very important to me and in my life. And so I'm very happy to be hosting this with our facilitators, with Nadia and Macy. And so a little bit about myself. I introduced in Mi'kmaq, my spirit name, the clan that I come from and where I get my strength. And also my English name is Rosalie Labillois. I'm currently working for Olnewig as a youth engagement officer for the New Brunswick region. And I'm currently a student in the BACS program that's in community in Listuguj as well. So that's the Bachelor of Arts in Community Studies. And I mentioned before I wear some other hats, and maybe my plate gets a little too full here and there. But I'm also the co-chair of the Assembly of First Nations National Youth Council. So that's my second term that I've been elected. So I'm very happy. And also some of the things that I've done in the past, I actually am a student of the Adult Mi'kmaq Immersion Program that is in Listuguj as well. I've done some traveling, been on little sides of the world. But I'm gonna move on to stop talking about myself and move on to our next little part of the agenda. And so this is the question that we have tonight for ourselves is why did we choose the name Niganpugultieg? And so Niganpugultieg, it could be translated as to somebody who's a leader, or in another way as somebody who stands ahead. And so when it came to this project that we're doing, this initiative, and we're trying to name ourselves, and it's like what best describes us, and we found there's a lot of importance in our language. It's so descriptive. It talks about the land, like that connection that we have to our environment and where we come from. And so that was kind of at the forefront of why we chose our name in Mi'kmaq. And so Niganpugultieg is just a plural form of Niganpugultieg, and to us that means that we stand ahead. And we pondered this question too, what does it mean to stand ahead? And a lot of our philosophy behind that is looking at the 7 generations prophecy, that 7 generations ago, our ancestors made decisions, for our future, why we're here. And right now that we have that responsibility as well, to those upcoming generations that'll come after us. So that's very much, in the spirit and intent of why we had chosen that word and what it means for us to stand ahead, and also tying into, the wonderful panelists that we have here as well. They're leaders in, in their own worlds too, and what they're doing, and wanting to highlight their contributions to our community and what is that collective identity, what does it mean to be Mi'kmaq as well. So this is a little reason why we had chosen Maddie, Killa, and Oakely. And so at this moment, I will now transition it to doing a roundtable discussion with our panelists. So first, I'll start off with Killa.
Thank you, Walalin. Gwen Indalvisi Killa, Nuch Dalvisi Felix, and Gitch Dalvisi Audrey, Wiki Jibuktuk Nova Scotia, Listuguj Love Nova Scotia. Hi, my name is Killa. My parents are Audrey and Felix. I grew up in community and I moved to Halifax for school. I now work in a nonprofit for a youth organization called Love Nova Scotia.
Hey, well then, Killa. And next on to Oakely.
Hi, Niganpugultieg Oakely Wysote-Grey, Labillois Listuguj NLC MBCCD Oakchit Fashion Design in Fredericton. Hi, my name is Oakely Wysote-Grey. I go to New Brunswick College of Craft and Design for fashion design. I'm currently a second-year fashion student in Fredericton. And yeah, hi.
Well then, Oakely. And next on to Maddie.
Graham Sawen, Deluisi Maddie Metallic, and Gitch Deluisi Trina, Nugamich, Aknamichkamich Deluisi Jik Gale, Octidal Metallic, Aknigatal Ginamwe AGS, It'll Ginamwe Ginama Sudi Note. So my name is Maddie Metallic. My mom's Trina Metallic, my grandparents are Tittle and Gale. And right now I'm currently working at AGS as a grade 1 Mi'kmaq immersion teacher. I'm also teaching the CBU courses for the next 2 months, language classes for adults. So really looking forward to that and really looking forward to this panel discussion today.
Hey, Labillois, for sharing all your bios, and I'm sure we're going to continue to get to know each and every one of you through our journey tonight. And so to start off, I'm just going to share a little bit about, we talked about where our name has come from, and also the importance of, language and culture. And I think by providing this space for each and every one of us to share and just kind of have like those chill conversations and really looking at, what is culture and language? And I think that could be defined in so many different ways where we're always ever evolving, right? Like culture isn't just one thing, but we're in this era where we're really taking back that narrative, right? We're beginning to define, what does it mean for us, and whether it's art, like language, like, anything that we decide to take upon and how we express ourselves. So this is kind of like where we're coming from in that conversation and why we had chosen each and every one of you too. And so I will now pass this on to Macy to start the discussions.
Thank you, Rose. So I'm going to be starting the discussion questions today. So the first question is, how did your journey start? So to give an idea, what or who inspired you? So I'm going to pass this on to Killa first.
Well, and thank you. I was lucky enough to, have all my school be in community. So nursery to grade 8, surrounded by community members and language speakers. There's so many who have contributed to my teachings and the understanding of the Mi'kmaq language. Too many to name, but Miss Faye, Miss Thelma, Miss Claudia, my mom, Janice Afmalian, Gail, they were all so instrumental in creating and developing that inherent thirst for knowledge and identity. And that continues to this day. So I'm so grateful, to have had them in my life and on my journey. And as well as my parents, who always instilled in me a great sense of identity as a Mi'kmaq child and now woman. So that's how my journey started.
Thank you for sharing. I can make a really good connection with that just because I went to school in Campbellton. So I'm really recognizing how much those connections, the community and the people in your family are so strong. They're so important. But yeah, I'm going to pass this question on to Oakely now. So the question was, how did your journey start and who or what inspired you?
My journey started when I was from a very young age, watching my mother, Claudia Gray, create everything that she did for her classes. And the first thing I picked up from her was beading, but she didn't necessarily teach me. She kind of just did it in front of me, and I replicated exactly what she was doing. So as you can see, I can say that my mother never taught me, but visually I learned from her. And yeah, that definitely set me on the path that I am on today. That's where my journey started, with my mom.
Thank you for sharing that, Oakely. So now I'm going to pass this on to Maddie. So how did your journey start and who or what inspired you?
I'm pretty sure, well, my journey started basically where the other panelists and then some in this conversation started through AGS, right? So I also have those teachers to thank me for. Even when I did my thesis for my master's, Miss Claudia, I can't even say Claudia Gray, Miss Claudia was my community supervisor. So I'm just really thankful to have that support and that connection from our teachers, like not even, as a student, but also coming into in my adulthood also. They're always there to support us. They showed up to my high school graduation, So I'm really, really thankful for that. In terms of working with language, I guess, it ironically started off when I was in my education program at Crandall University. And I guess at that time, I felt very, like I was proud of who I was and stuff, but when I was in my undergrad, it felt very, nobody was really interested. It felt kind of silent. So I didn't really, pursue it any further. But in my education program, everyone was just so excited to hear about my language and wanted to learn more. And it kind of gave me that motivation and kind of just went from there. But really, it's, again, working with our community and people supporting you along the way. And even now as a Mi'kmaq immersion teacher, I have my coworkers to thank because they're just inspiring. All they have to do is keep doing what they're doing. And I watch them face, challenges and stuff and just overcome it like any other day. So it's just really thankful for that, I suppose. Yeah. I hope that answered the question.
Well, I could definitely see and even making some connections to last night's call. We talked about how it takes a community to raise a child, and like I just had like this aha moment just listening to everyone and recognizing that I had those same teachers too, and like their contribution to my life has really instilled something, like, going to Mi'kmaq class or, going to our culture class and doing like our arts and crafts. And, we overlook that at times, right? But now you can see how important, to our identity that was. And I think it's super cool that, we have some of our teachers' children here, and we could see that little cycle, right? That cycle of our lives, that we had them as teachers. And now just reading some of the comments last night, we had our own teachers acknowledging us. So I just wanted to point that out too. But so the next question is, what helped shape your pathways? And so beforehand we talked about there's not just one way, right? And I think we've all taken different routes and pathways. And so we're just interested to hear, what was your experience like, whether it was in school or like things that happened in life or anything that helped shape your pathway. And so we'll start off with Oakely.
Hi. What really helped shape my pathway was my family always pushed me to explore my creativity, whether it was through art, through the way I look, through my personality and who I am as a two-spirited human. But another thing that has also helped me was noticing how there wasn't very much Indigenous representation in the fashion world. And that really set me on my pathway of becoming the Indigenous designer that I never got to see as a child. So everything that my mom has taught me and all the language that my dad has taught me has really pushed me towards following my dream of becoming a fashion designer. And that's where I ended up on this path.
Well, then Oakely for sharing that. It's definitely, you talked about something that's really important, and how can, if we don't see ourselves in those positions, how can we make those who are come after us be able to, imagine themselves in those spaces too. So, and next I'll pass it on to Maddie. And so I'm also going to share that in the chat just so it's there. So the question is, what helped shape your pathway?
Basically, the same people who inspired or who helped me where I started, of course, they helped and supported me along the way. Another thing I think that really shaped my thinking in terms of, wanting to focus on Mi'kmaq centered things in my classroom, our language or history or culture and things like that. And I think that really switched when I went to my program out west at University of Victoria, and it was an Indigenous governance program. And that's where I started really learning about, how it's important to be creating those relationships with the land and how important it is to be contributing back to the community and things like that. Because honestly, I love my community, but I was young and was ready to explore and wasn't really interested in coming home, until that program. And ever since then, I swear it's like I need to feel home. I love it. I'm enjoying it, but I almost can't picture myself anywhere else, because I'm just trying to, you know, reconnect and see what that is. And I feel like this is the place I need to be and help and contribute to the community, right? Especially speaking of how, you know, they helped us shape our path and stuff. So it's kind of coming back and giving back, and to the future generations, like we speak of also, right? So what the care we've received and the support, it's our turn now to pass that on, right? So I think that really changed a lot of my my thinking processes and things like that, and how I view the world, or how maybe my mind was, you know, very looking through a colonial lens before that without even realizing. So lately I've just been really reflecting on that, and kind of, it's really changing the way I've been thinking for the past few years, you know. So yeah, I guess that answers the question.
Hey, well, Alan, I think that has a lot of insight, and you know, it's just your experience through navigating that. There's so much wisdom within that, and so I just want to acknowledge you for that as well. And so I will pass it on now to Killa. And so the question was, what helped shape your pathway? And so, as I mentioned before, it could be, was it education, or did it come from like a personal experience, or was it influenced by family, or a combination of all of them? So.
Yeah, so, you know, besides all of the, you know, wonderful humans that I mentioned in the last question, who gave me, you know, that foundation with all their teachings and knowledge and opportunities and experiences, they really gave me that foundation to be able to carry it on my own. So when I moved out of the community to attend school in Halifax 14 years ago, which seems absurd, but I was lucky enough to I never left, you know, our ancestral lands. So I was still in Mi'kma'ki, I'm still in Mi'kma'ki. So there was always that connection. However, for the first few years of my university career, I guess, you know, like Maddie, I was exploring, I was, you know, getting to know new people, new cultures, and at the same time kind of distancing myself from my own. So yeah, so for the first few years of university, I kind of lost sight of who I was as a Mi'kmaq person. I mean, I knew I was Mi'kmaq, but I didn't carry it as I should have. But then I was fortunate enough to have met a lot of other Mi'kmaq people in the city who helped me kind of shape that identity as an urban Mi'kmaq, which is the, you know, the path that I'm walking in now. It's not forever, but that's what I'm kind of doing now. So I think even those, not challenges, but just growing curves, you know, growing isn't linear, identity isn't linear. So that kind of shaped me and helped shape my path.
Well, Alan, I think those, you know, really highlighted some other, I think if we have time at the end, you know, those are some other conversations that I think that are really important that maybe we could dig deeper into. But right now I'll pass this on to Macy, and so she'll be asking question 3.
Okay, so now that we get a little more deeper into the questions, they're getting more specific. So the third one is, why should culture and language be valued in community? So what type of influences does this have, and why? So I'm going to pass this question on to Maddie to start. Oh, you're on mute, sorry.
Still not used to the Zoom. It's been a while since I've been on it. So why should culture and language be valued in community? I think that's really valuing culture and language in our community is kind of for the benefit of our community, right? And I think it goes down to, you know, our identity as Mi'kmaq people in the community. And like an example I can think of, when I was in school, whether it be, well, outside of community, you know, high school, post-secondary, a lot of the times I almost felt like I didn't completely fit in all the time. And I always thought it was something wrong with me. Well, I'm not good enough. What's my problem? You know, until I started doing more, you know, land-based activities, going out on the land, getting to know my language more and things like that. And it just, it feels like, I don't know, it feels like home, it feels comfortable. And I'm like, oh, wow, there isn't anything wrong with me. I was just in the wrong place the whole time. So I don't know, I feel like culture and language, having that connection really kind of, you know, fulfills you like as a Mi'kmaq Ilnu person, right? It adds, it's our history, it's who we are, right? And along with all other things, even our language and culture, there's so much knowledge and information in there that is, you know, of who we are, that is very beneficial, and we can't afford to lose that, right? But most importantly, it just, I don't know how to explain that, but it kind of fulfills your soul, right? When you're practicing these things that are inherently yours, right? So I think it should definitely, it's a good reason to be valued and prioritized within our communities. So yeah.
Thank you for sharing. That was a really good response. I can connect a lot to that, just similar to what you were saying about how, you know, you don't feel that connection, or you kind of feel lost. You know, when I first moved away for school, I didn't realize how like important, how much value there is to, you know, our culture. And when I quickly soon realized that, you know, like I started, you know, trying to connect more with the community while I was gone, or like, you know, connect to family, just connect to my roots to kind of like fulfill that role. But yeah, that was very nice. Thank you. So I'm going to pass this on to Killa.
Thank you. Yeah, when I read this question, it kind of just didn't make me shake my head, but I was just like, you know, it's the same as asking, you know, why should our heartbeat be valued by our body? Or why should, you know, our breath value our lungs? It's not something, you know, we can disconnect from. We can't separate ourselves from it. You know, it's who we are, whether we show it or whether we, you know, walk in it every day. It's still, you know, who we are. And our culture is made up of our values. And by not valuing our culture, we're not valuing ourselves. And culture it's not defined by, you know, what you wear or how many beaded earrings you have or the music you listen to. It's the values that we hold collectively as a community and as a Mi'kmaq nation. And it's our responsibility to ensure that those values continue to be carried on in the future generations, and to continue instilling that, you know, instilling those values. It's almost like when I see like a Native Pride hat or bumper sticker, you know, a lot of people, you know, just wear the hats and wear the t-shirts and you know, claim Native Pride, but I always want to ask them, like, what does that mean to you? What is it that you're taking pride in? You know, what does that encompass? What values are you holding on to? What steps are you taking to ensure that those values continue? Because you can't be, it's hard to be proud of something that you're not actively contributing to. Whether that be, you know, introspectively, so, you know, within yourself, it's not all about, you know, what we do, but so it can be introspectively, or, you know, for our community. But what are you doing to ensure that continues on, that you know, our nation continues on in our language and our culture? What steps are you taking to ensure that you are a good ancestor? You know, if someone in the future generations were to walk in your footsteps today, would they recognize themselves as a Mi'kmaq person? So yes, absolutely. our values and our culture and our language should definitely be valued. I don't see that as separate from who we are. Yeah.
Yeah, that question definitely answers for itself. I think we all know that culture should be valued in community. I like how you pointed out, like, by not valuing our culture, we're not valuing ourselves. And, you know, culture just isn't about, you know, like how much beadwork you have or like, you know, like fitting into those stereotypes. It's about how we're going to continue in the future. And I really like how you shared that. Thank you, Killa. So now I'm going to pass this on to Oakely.
Hey, going to school in our community has really helped me value our culture and language, as it was something that was in our education and how it sculpted who we are as human beings and how we can move on forward into the world knowing that where we come from is who we are, and how living, breathing Mi'kmaq is vital to us. And it really shows us like how we value all the education that we've gone through as at a very young age, and that it's still in our blood as we move forward into this world, even when we're not in our community. And that is something that I will always value. And yeah, I'm sitting over now.
Well, and Oakely for that. And, you know, it was when we were formulating these questions, we're like, okay, so if we shape it in this way, you know, what are we trying to get at? And I think oftentimes I have attended many different sessions and different language forums. And I think I want to quote Eleanor Bernard. She's a really powerful language champion from Eskasoni. And I remember what she said at this one event down in Halifax was that, you know, I just want our people to value language once again. And I think that spoke volumes. And when it came to this question too, like that's what we had wanted to touch upon was like, you know, why is this important? It's not just, you know, it's not just for talk, or it's not just for, you know, it's not just to talk about things. It's not a buzzword, you know, Maddie, and you had mentioned, you know, that identity, and even Killa and Oakely, like, you know, this is all something that is intertwining and it has been so integral to our identities. And I think that's where our hopes and aspirations for these conversations to go. And especially with this next question that we'll be posing, is you know, I myself, I'll share a little bit. I know we have some extra time, so I'll share a little bit about my experience. You know, I have to recognize my privilege, right? I grew up in a sober and drug-free home, and you know, we were brought up in ceremony. And you know, at times when I was younger, it felt different. I was different than my peers, right? You know, I heard the songs and we were abroad, and, you know, I remember listening to various elders come in through our homes and, you know, come stay the night and, you know, things like that. Like those are really big things in my childhood. And I began to realize growing up, not everybody had that opportunity, you know? So when I say that's a privilege, like it's in no way to boast about my childhood, but I understand that I have a great responsibility now, right? You know, I have that responsibility to share of my lived experiences to, you know, it's kind of like bridging that gap, right? Bridging that gap from our young people to our elders, to our ceremonies, that way of life. And even through the arts that everybody's been talking about, that cultural expression, you know, that these are something that our people are trying to, you know, bring back to life, you know, to breathe new life into it. You know, understanding that these things haven't died out or we have forgotten them. You know, things may be dormant, but they're still there. We just got to go back and bring them back home again, right? So I just wanted to share that little tidbit to help, you know, shape things and help set the tone of why we're having these discussions and why it's important that we talk about these things. And, you know, because when we talk about that question, it's like that value gets overlooked. you know, if we didn't have our languages, if we didn't have our cultural practices or our traditions, you know, we possibly may not be here today, right? So I think it's important that we reflect back on that. But I'll move on to the next question. And so the next one is how can youth contribute to the resurgence of culture and language within our community? And, you know, this question is posed in a way like, you know, how can we give advice to even our younger selves, or, you know, some of our younger cousins or community members that may be joining on this call as well? You know, how can, you know, what was ways, and I know we talked about how did your journey start, or who are those people that influence, but, you know, now it's the time to, like, how can we give advice to our young people who are in those urban settings? You know, how can they get back to the land? Or what are services that are in some of the bigger cities, and even highlighting, one of 4Rs' cohort last year was Reclaiming Our Roots, you know, given access, you know, to people in urban settings. And, you know, so just trying to give ideas on how, you know, what kind of recommendations we could give to our young people, and something that they could take away with this as well. So I believe we are back at the top. And if Killa, if you have one to start off.
Thank you. Sorry, my cat is finally here, but yeah, the biggest thing I see is language. And I don't like to say that it's a dying language, because that kind of implies that it's a natural death, or that, you know, it's time to go. It's not a dying language, it's an endangered language. And there's been policies and, you know, experiences and trauma that have pushed to put this language at risk. And that's not uplifting at all, but it is the reality. So I think, you know, the main thing and the biggest thing right now is to speak to our elders, to speak to our fluent speakers, to speak the few words that you know, and to continue growing on that, to never stop learning, to never give up. You know, we're so lucky to have the immersion programs that we have, and the classes in school, and even in the city here, there's language classes that I attend, or I have attended. But yeah, just keeping that thirst to continue learning the language, and you know, even if that means putting signs up, you know, in your house for different words that you can continue seeing and repeating when you see them. Those are the easy ways to kind of just learn words. And then when you learn words, you learn sentences. So it's not easy, but it's necessary. And yeah, so I'm seeing, you know, a resurgence of more speakers, younger speakers, people trying without, you know, being afraid to say words wrong. And I think that's where it kind of will grow from. And with that, you know, just connecting to elders and connecting to the land as much as you can. I'm so grateful here to have, you know, a Mi'kmaq elder that I have here. So I still have that connection here in the city, as well as connection to the land and connection to Reclaiming Our Roots, who do amazing programming for the youth here. So yeah, I think it's just trying and never stop trying, never stop learning. Thanks.
Hey, well, Alan, for that. You know, I think that's, you know, when it comes to these discussions, like, we know that not everything is gonna be like sunflowers and butterflies and rainbows. Like, you know, it's important to acknowledge, you know, these colonial policies that have, you know, really stripped us of our identity, and understanding too that it's still an ongoing process, you know, to recognize those things in our communities, like lateral violence, like that shame. And, you know, I loved how you highlighted that too, when it comes to our speakers, like, you know, taking those risks and trying to pronounce those words, like, you know, and doing that unapologetically too. Like, you know, we have to make that space in order, if we want our language to continue, we have to be comfortable, and we have to hold that space for one another to make those mistakes and to learn from them too. You know, so thank you for acknowledging that. And I think that even kind of highlights in a way, and I'll just share a little bit too about some of my experience down in Aotearoa in New Zealand. And you know, it's kind of where we're sitting on with some of these language policies, like, you know, can this be something that will benefit us in the future? You know, just considering those conversations too. And I've got to see down in New Zealand, you know, one of their language policies, laws, how it has helped them. You know, so I think there's good and there's bad to it, and I think there's a lot of things that we could be hopeful for. But I'll now pass on the question to Oakely.
Hi. Karen, just give me a second. Okay, so I think growing up, it was my, okay, 1 second. I just want to give the advice of like looking for the connection with your culture and language through your family, and listening to the stories that your family has to offer with their language and culture. I have to say I come from a very privileged household where I was always around my language and culture, and I know that not many youth are able to have that, and I acknowledge that I am very lucky in that way. But there are a bunch of people in our community who can offer their stories and teach you the language, teach you more about your culture, and especially even in school. And that's an awesome thing to have in our community. And another thing that we can do is also look at our elders who have showed us how to share and give to our community, especially the elders who do a lot for our community and organize and cook for our community. And I feel like it would be very beneficial for youth to connect with the people who really do a lot for our community and learn from their stories. And also, it's good to learn about who you are and who you want to be, and really focus on who you want to be as a human being, whether it's with your identity, with the way that you look, with everything. And yeah.
Thank you, Oakely. I think that was, you know, really powerful in understanding, you know, where you're coming at. And I think too, it's just encouraging those people and looking back at our session last night, it's just like finding things that you're passionate about. You know, what do you love? And going back to that and centering yourself, like, you know, we do have a great responsibility to community and how we contribute, but ultimately we should be putting ourselves at the front too, right? You know, what does Rosalie want? You know, what does she want to do with her lives? And so, you know, that's what really touched me, Oakely, with sharing your words. And so now I'll pass this on to Maddie.
I'd just like to add to what Killa and Oakely have said, because they've said it all right. But especially when they touched on just, you know, how there is that hesitancy to get in touch with your language and your culture. I can speak a lot for language in particular, right? There's a lot of fear and hesitancy with speaking the language, rightfully so, right? Some people have grown up with shame for the language, or some people might be hesitant. Maybe they think it's too late, you know? So it's not easy for me to say. I was lucky enough to learn the language growing up, you know, but I can use my grandmother for an example, who really learned to be fluent at 15 years old. So I always use her as an example and say, it's not too late for anybody, you know. It might be a little harder, it might take a little longer, but it's possible. There's a lot of resources out there. And I struggle with the same thing too, for asking for teachings or support, you know, in terms of even, you know, my culture per se. Sometimes I don't feel as, you know, traditional activities and things like that. I'm not as knowledgeable as I feel I could be with the language, right? And I know I express kind of hesitancy too, because I feel too shy to ask sometimes. But then once it happens, I'm kind of like, oh, that wasn't as intimidating as I thought it was. You know, I really enjoyed that. And I can speak from my perspective as a language teacher. If somebody's come in willing to learn, I'm usually like excited. I get excited. I'm like, oh yeah, keep speaking. So I just say, as hard as it might be, try not to be hesitant or, you know, scared to try these new things, because there's people out there who are, you know, willing to help, willing to support, excited to share, you know. But yeah, and like I said, like we've all said many times, it's everybody has their own journey, right? So we'll get there. But just to say that there is those resources and support out there, just gotta get to the right person, you know. Yeah.
Hey, well, Alan, so much for that. You know, I'm just looking at some of our Facebook Live, and currently we have 59 viewers, and I believe at one point I saw 70. That seems to be our number for these past two series that we've been doing. But I do just want to share, like, you know, we have a lot of community members who have been like commenting very encouraging things, and so we had asked, so this time we'll be transitioning into these like little question and answer period, and we had asked for some of the community members to share some of those. And so I'm just gonna go through right now, and one that had popped out to me was from Vera, and she said, what do you think about how we should enhance our language in our community? And so this is open to anybody, just feel free to unmute yourselves if you had wanted to answer this. So once again, is what do you think about how we should enhance our language in our community?
I can speak to that. I think an easy way is just to, you know, use it more, to see it more, to hear it more. So whether that be, you know, if you call the health center and they answer in Mi'kmaq, the signs, more signage, more pamphlets, just kind of like how in Quebec, you know, now they have it, you know, where the first language is French. I think that should be what we do in the community is, you know, first language first is Mi'kmaq. And yeah, the more you hear it, the more you see it, the more, you know, the more it gets ingrained in you.
Hey, well, Alan, for that. And does anybody else have any answers for that?
I can speak a little to that. I agree with what Killa says, kind of just prioritizing it and seeing everywhere. That I think that sends a message, right? Also, I also think it's not going to happen overnight. I think I like to tell myself that a lot, because especially at the beginning, I get like easily discouraged, you know, where you might see like, oh, there's not as interest as I thought there was, or things like that. But then again, like I mentioned before, there are reasons why there's these barriers into learning our language. So, you know, I guess kind of, I would say best thing would be baby steps. Even having, you know, community discussions specifically about, well, language or anything, or reclaiming it, right? Like we kind of are, but maybe even like a community-wide one, you know, where we can figure this out as a community. I think the possibility there, the opportunities there, it's just kind of, you know, getting it going and things like that. In terms of work, it seems like, you know, language revitalization is it's so popular, and there's so many opportunities, you know, to take these language programs, like you've mentioned, the adult immersion program, that opens a lot of opportunities, specifically teaching opportunities and creating resources and things like that. So there are a lot of ways to expand, and it'd be great, because the only problem for us in terms of expanding our program is we need more speakers, we need more people. So don't be shy, come learn the language and join the team, you know, so. Yeah.
Hey, well, Alan, for that. And I think that just, it goes to show like things aren't I don't want to say things aren't as difficult as they seem, you know, but it's just putting in that effort, you know, like what Killa said is like, just do it. Like, you know, whether you need constant little pictures or reminders wherever you look in your household, then that's what you do. Like, you know, and I think I saw one of the questions too was, and I see a lot of our viewers are actually answering that for this individual. But Cedric Gray had asked, does the panel know of any resources for off-resers on language resources? And so I think Cedric is getting his answers from there. We had a lot of people sharing different dictionaries or different like Quizlets, and so that the resources are kind of at our hand. You know, there's plenty of apps, and you know it's things have become much more accessible. But it's also like finding those mentors, you know, finding that person you could spend time with, and understanding that things won't just happen overnight, right? It's just to be gentle with yourself. And I think just in my experience in the language program, I remember I once saw this quote, and this, I forget who the woman is, but what she had said was, learning my language was like beginning to see the world in full color. And I think when I started that, my year in the immersion, it was like mind-blowing, because I had that access to ceremony. I had elders I could turn to, but I wanted to understand my spirit in a whole different way. And that's what the language has brought to me. You know, so I think that's my little connection to that as well. So I'm just gonna see. Nadia, was there any other questions that I had missed while I was talking away? And if there's any others.
Oh, sorry. I was just keeping track actually of questions. And so we have one from Alex Gray. So what type of community support helped you complete your respective programs while in school? And I actually just want to reframe this question, just because I know we did talk about school as well, but you can include that. But just to reframe that, so what kind of community support did you have in terms of culture and language, and how did that help you progress within your, I guess, within your respective things that you do? And this is open to anyone who would like to answer on that one.
I think for me, being able to come home and still be able to work on my collection, and be able to talk to elders and also have support from the community in like building my company, and being able to learn the language that goes behind building everything. And yeah, coming home and learning from my grandmother, who has taught me how to just help and give a lot to our community. And she actually basically helped me find kind of like the values for my brand, where I want to bring sustainable clothing to our communities and be able to bring nice, high quality clothing to our community at an affordable price. And it was just, yeah, I guess our community is very supportive when it comes to anything. And yeah.
Yeah, that's something that I really feel too, and what I've been through and the things that I've done, I've always felt a type of support from community, which has always made me proud to be from Listuguj. I don't know if Maddie or Killa, if you guys also had anything to add, but if not, we can go on to the next question. Okay. So we have a question from Ali Barnaby. What are your visions for the future of our community?
I'll go quickly. More speakers. You know, I think I read something that said that we have about 10% of our population who are fluent speakers. I'd like to see that, you know, obviously get higher. by the year, by the decade. I think it can happen, and I think we're on the right path. So that's definitely something I'd like to see. I'd also like to see, you know, more arts in the community. You know, we have a museum, I think it's still there, but, you know, I'd like to see something, you know, bigger and more engaging and interactive, and where we can showcase, you know, art, you know, Oakely's work, my stuff, you know, art from the community members. I think there's big potential there and a great opportunity to showcase our art and our culture.
I really like that, Killa, and also when you brought up the museum, because I remember just being in AGS, I think like 5th or 6th grade, and going to the museum, and Lisa teaching me how to bead. So mentioning the museum, I think it's a really special place to our community, and it just makes me think of the museum that we're going to create, and what our museum is going to look like when we're in the stages of leading our communities. So going into our next question, we have, this is from Trina Ann. So what happens to Listuguj if people choose not to learn or learn, speak, use, or live in their language?
I'll answer that quickly because I saw that question earlier, and I've been thinking about it since. Listuguj is, you know, it's a reserve land. You know, there's boundaries around it. Without the culture, without, you know, the language, that's all it is. It's just land. It's us who make it a community. You know, it's the speakers, it's the community members who make it what it is as Listuguj. Otherwise, it's just land.
Yeah, no, I really believe that. And I'm sorry, but I wasn't, I had other questions that I saw that come up. I didn't get to really listen to your question right there, but I heard you talking about the land. And I really think that's important too when we think about language, and as well as the land, because like the language is what brings us back to the land. And just like our next question, that the one that I was just copying and pasting. So this is actually by Spencer Isaac. So could you envision our community benefiting from incentivizing, ironically, Mi'kmaq language lessons as part of those 9-to-5 jobs? So I guess, I guess that's the way I understand this question. I guess a couple hours during the day for Listuguj who work in Listuguj, having the chance to participate in language lessons as part of their employment in Listuguj. This is the way that I kind of understood that.
I think he's speaking about when I was a summer student, we had that same thing. We were able to go to Mi'kmaq language classes for an hour of our day, and it was considered a part of your work day. So you got paid for that hour also. I think it was really helpful. I really enjoyed it. It kind of, you know, it gives you that time. Whereas if the classes were in the evening, then maybe a lot of people might not be able to with their busy schedules, right? So it does give an opportunity. I think it's a helpful tool. You know, obviously learning will have to go beyond the 1 hour and things like that, but yeah, it's a great idea.
Yeah, no, I actually, that actually sounds like such a good idea, and thanks, Spencer, for bringing that up, because that's something I actually haven't thought of, and just because I also didn't get the opportunity and to participate in language classes all the time as I got older and things like that, and that's also a good opportunity that I see for Listuguj. So,
Nat, can I jump in?
Oh yes, no problem. Oh, sorry.
It's because I saw that question too, and I hope I think I'm understanding where Spencer's coming at, and I think, you know, even though I'm one of the facilitators, I as I mentioned before, I was a student in the immersion program. And you know, Listuguj right now, there is like a small incentive, right, when it comes to, and I believe that's kind of like a collaboration with LMDC, because in my personal experience, right, we're there from Monday to Friday, from 9 to 3:30. You know, that's basically a full-time job, and you know, when it comes down to it, it's a great initiative. You know, the people are great. The, you know, the students, the teachers, you know, that space is there. But I think when it comes down to it, right, it's we do need those supports, right? Because we're there full time. Some of us had their own families, they had households to run, and you know, just working off like, you know, EI or welfare, it doesn't cut it, you know. It doesn't. And that's where we have to recognize that, you know, we have to make a living too, and it's hard to choose, you know, feeding your family and your responsibility to language and culture. And you know, how can you make that decision, you know? And maybe we need to make this more accessible in a way that you know, it accommodates where people are at, you know, whether they're working or they have families, and you know, making those spaces more inclusive. Like, you know, we had people taking their babies to class, and you know, making that a norm. Like it's okay, you know. How are we going to teach our babies if we're not including them, right? You know, so I'm hoping that kind of answers your question, Spencer. Like, you know, there has to be more incentive, you know, but it's not an incentive to be, I'm going to pay you to learn your language. No, I'm going to pay you, I'm going to help support you while you take this responsibility, you know, while you undergo that. I'm there to support you. You know, we have to change that initiative, because there's no money, and like, you know, there's no amount of money in the world that you know, that I could buy. Like I can't buy our language, right? That it comes from within, that want, that drive. But it's hard when we're forced to make these decisions on, you know, am I going to make that bill, or you know, am I going to, you know, I don't know. It's a hard thing, and I think I just wanted to highlight that too. And I think Maddie's like jumping, so I'll
I always get excited. Yeah. I just wanted to add to that. You're right. It's a sacrifice to make, and I think that's why, you know, we don't keep as many students throughout the year, or you know, because sometimes there's a job comes up and they have no choice, right? Like, I think it's a great idea if you have the means to do so, but. I don't know. I kind of want to bring it back to the other question, like, what's your perfect community, and kind of like take it a step forward, because right now everybody's at work at these, you know, 9 to 5 hours, and it's creating a lot of barriers with all these things. And I would just love it if, you know, this is like a perfect world. It's not happening tomorrow, but someday I would love for just our community or whatever system we're a part of to be designed for those things, for language learning, to give those opportunities. One example I could think of is like lately when I'm thinking about teaching and lesson planning, and I think of the school year. And well, first of all, in the winter time, a lot of people get winter blues. They're tired. They just want to sleep. There's teaching opportunities for sure, but in the summertime, there are so many opportunities. So why couldn't we have our school year throughout the summer, and then, you know, 2 months off during the winter? It creates more activity. Why are we following this certain schedule when it doesn't really fit for us? You know, and the same thing with work and jobs. Well, can we do it a different way that works best for everyone and supports them? You know, trying to rethink that, because these systems that we're a part of, you know, work schedule, I know it's difficult to separate from, but it's not benefiting us in the long run or supporting us in our efforts to revitalize, you know, what was taken from us and things like that. So just looking at it that way, it would be wonderful, you know.
Yeah, or thank you guys for answering that. And I kind of liked how you guys were just like touching upon like the different ways of how like these things are happening, and like the different structures in which they're happening, and like how thinking of us as like Indigenous people and the processes that we follow, and like sometimes how that can like hinder us as well, and like also being able to recognize and how we can benefit from them as well. So I really appreciate you guys. I'm just gonna check it if there's any other questions. I don't think there are any more so far, but I didn't know if there was anyone that just had any unfinished thoughts that they wanted to add just before we begin the closing of this conversation.
Sarah, I believe, yeah, Sarah Isaac had one more question.
Oh my gosh, yes, I even wrote that one down. I'm so sorry. So, I'm sorry.
No, I just wanted to see, like, I hope like if that's okay with everybody, that we have this one last question from Sarah.
Yes.
Yeah, so you could pose that, Nat.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Do any panel members hope that there is an expansion for this type of teaching methods? And I'm assuming this is for AGS, or as an outdoor educator. I'll read the comment again. So AGS has an outdoor educator. Do any panel members hope that there is an expansion for this type of teaching method? And oh, I'm sorry, you can continue.
I definitely agree. There needs to be a lot more opportunities for outdoor education. Actually, with COVID now, it's kind of more encouraged, you know, to bring the kids outdoors. Personally, for me as a teacher, that's something I want to pursue further with my class. Right now, I have them going out once a week for outdoors, and hopefully, like baby steps, you know, keep that going. You know, maybe next year I'll have twice a week, and then, you know, eventually full out, because for so many reasons, right? The children, they thrive in the outdoors. If you ever speak to our forest kindergarten teachers, and they're doing just amazing things over there, right? And as a teacher, you worry like, oh no, those outcomes aren't going to be met out there, but they in fact are. You know, there's lots of opportunities for cross-curricular teaching in terms of bringing it outdoors, and the kids just enjoy it. They thrive in it, you know. I could think back when I taught grade 8s, and we did a program, you know, where we went outdoors and we were going to build a longhouse. So we went to go gather the material, and the students who you would describe as the ones who have a tougher time in the classroom, you know, they were thriving out there. All the students were, you know, so it's only for their benefit, for everybody really, not just the children, right? So definitely need to explore that more. And, you know, I could go on, you know, like, should learning be confined within a classroom and things like that? There's just so many benefits to outdoor education. And yeah, hopefully we get more, and every class becomes an outdoor classroom. Be great.
Yeah, I really, really love the concept of like outdoor education, and just seeing a lot more of that online too. And like I've seen some of your videos too, just posting of the kids just speaking in Mi'kmaq. It's one of like the coolest things ever, and I really enjoy seeing that online. So now we're just going to go into the closing of this conversation, and so I'm going to ask again if just anyone had any unfinished thoughts, and even just wanted to contribute to just that last question as well. But if not, I will go on to close. Oh, Killa.
Oh, sorry. I just want to say something quick to add on to what Maddie said, but I don't think there's anything that can't be taught outside. You know, you can teach math, you can teach science, you can teach chemistry, physics, language, history. There's nothing that you can't teach outside. And I just want to shout out Reclaiming Our Roots again, because they're doing amazing work here. And I think, you know, if they can't be everywhere, I think that you know, their methods and their teaching should definitely be in every community. I encourage everybody to check them out because they're doing amazing work, and it really is kind of what we're talking about, you know, land-based learning and learning from the land. And yeah, that's all I want to say.
Yeah, thank you for actually reminding me about Reclaim Your Roots. And for the people that are, I guess, wondering or curious about them, they have an Instagram where they show mostly almost every day about things they're doing out on the land. And it's actually really, really interesting to what they do, because they share teachings as well. And I just wanted to say thanks to Killa, because I live here in Niganpugultieg as well. And I actually look forward to checking that out. So just to, I think now that's for our questions for now. And I just wanted to thank everyone, to our panelists, to our audience, to our facilitators, to 4Rs, and everyone that has really contributed in like with this event and the web series, and who has shared it, and all of your kind words. And I also just wanted to take this time again, just because I just realized that I didn't touch upon this in the beginning, but I wanted to show light onto 4Rs, who is the organization as to which that we're able to provide this web series for you all. So Rosalie, Macy, and I, we got the opportunity to go through a program that 4Rs offers, which is the National Learning Committee, if I'm not mistaken, and where youth groups from around our national youth groups from around in Canada host a gathering in their communities. And I'm really excited that I got the opportunity to organize this with Rose and Macy. And I just wanted to thank everyone who is willing to share their perspectives and your knowledge tonight. And it was all really valuable. And I'm sure everyone is gonna take so much from this conversation. So Walalio, and I hope you all have a good night. Oh, and Macy just has one last thing to say. I'll let her say that.
Yeah, we also have a survey coming out soon, so we just want to hear your feedback about our series. You know, just get your voice out there. And this will be doing a giveaway with this too, so really hope that you'd be participating. And I'll give this to Rose too. She has something to share as well.
Hey, Walalio, and you know, just to touch upon and you know, to reiterate what Nadia said, you know, thank everybody for being here, and especially I think you know, a big shout out to our community. You know, we're seeing now, my parents always said, like, you reap what you sow, or maybe I'm saying that's wrong, but I'm just my brain's like just going around, but I think it's true, right? You know, that, you know, they invested in us, and look at us now, you know, look at where we're at, you know, to acknowledge like all these very instrumental people that have contributed so much to our lives and to our language warriors, those who had kept our art alive, and that it's beginning to thrive once again and get the recognition that it deserves, you know. So to acknowledge those who are being the trailblazers in that, you know, for Oakely, for what you're doing in your art, and you know, I can't wait to see where your future will take you. And same with Killa, you know, to keep up the good work and what you're doing, and you know, these are going to cause those ripple effects, and to Maddie, you know, to hold you up and to what you're doing for our language as well. Like, you know, that these are things that we're going to be able to see in our future, and just that we just got to be patient, you know, it will come to be. And so with that, we're coming up to our ending of our closing, and I just wanted to highlight that on Friday we're going to be having our one of the last series for this week, and it's going to be at 6 p.m., the same place, and our discussions are going to be on health and wellness. So if anybody doesn't have anything else to say, I will stop this live stream. But I just want to thank everybody for joining in and for being engaged with us during this time.
And just a reminder to everyone as well who shared our giveaway post, our giveaway is going to be happening on Facebook Live tonight. And we're going to be doing the Wheel of Names, and that's how we'll be doing our giveaway tonight. So good luck to everyone, and we look forward to our final series that's going to be happening on Friday. So Walalio, nimultes.